an article, and this article is entitled South Africa Must Support the Ending of Israel Apartheid and Colonization. Roshan, assalamu alaikum and welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, and thanks to your listeners.
Right, Roshan, let's talk about this piece that you've written now, talking about South Africa supporting the ending of Israel apartheid. Now, you've also made reference here to the Human Rights Watch releasing their...
Hello? 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 Hello?
Cap on Inspired Afternoons with Mariam Mia.
Just so happy to see your colleagues again interacting, engaging, because as human beings, we are social by nature, and that's what makes us human beings. Our need to interact, form relations, form bonds, that is what drives us, that's what motivates us.
The way we can express ourselves, I can't think of time 2 or 3 years ago prior to this, because it's just become part of our everyday language.
Inspired Afternoons with Mariam Mia, 2 to 4 p.m. on Salam Media.
A man of charm.
When we look at the morning, we thank Allah Ta'ala for the beauty of the morning.
Bouncy and bubbly.
Have you ever heard of a first world country that was governed by blacks?
Barack Obama in the United States is a black guy, Mr. Euster. He's swart, he's okay.
Yeah, that's true, but he's not black. He's actually colored.
Mr. Euster.
A man of passion.
What about the many little kids that are dying? Is there enough attention the government is giving to this particular topic and subject?
A fighter for justice.
I'm not saying anything, no allegations, no claims. What do you believe you did wrong in Orion Cold Storage for the situation it finds itself in now?
A guardian of the public interest.
Corruption in South Africa includes the private use of public resources, bribery, and improper favoritism.
A seeker of the truth.
But at the end of the day, the facts and the truth is something that has to be revisited.
A father to us all.
It will not probably be something affecting us now, but 20 years down the line, our children are going to be badly scarred by this evil of pornography like they are with music today.
A pioneer of Islamic radio.
What should be the response of the Ummah? What should basically happen on such type of situations?
Salam Media, a global voice for humanity.
This is the Iftar Drive on Salam Media, 4 to 5:30 p.m.
Roshan, now let's talk about this piece that you've written and the message that you are conveying in this piece, which is entitled South Africa Must Support the Ending of Israel Apartheid and Colonization.
Yes, thanks for having us on the show.
Yes, did you get my question, Roshan?
Sorry, no, the line cuts for a second. I'm sorry. Could you just repeat it?
I'm just talking about this piece where you've written and talking about South Africa ending Israel apartheid and colonization. And just as far as your message is concerned, the message of this piece that you've written is meant to convey.
Yes, well, I mean, we wrote the piece given that Human Rights Watch, which is one of the most renowned human rights organizations, and particularly so in the US, published a report actually on Freedom Day last week, our Freedom Day, that clearly states that Israeli actions amount to apartheid under international law. And they argue, the long report, they argue very concretely exactly what actions and where in terms of both the Convention Against Apartheid and the Rome Statute of the ICC. It's clear in the report that, that's what people have been saying for a long time, that Israel actually is conducting itself in terms of an apartheid state. They say that they demonstrate that Israel is carrying out apartheid through actions that constitute persecution and apartheid, which are crimes against humanity in international law.
Now, obviously, looking at South Africa, and in the article you make mention of the South African cabinet having signed the UN Apartheid Convention, And as far as the report is concerned, the human rights report in terms of its recommendations and what BDS is saying and what your article is saying, that South Africa should support the recommendations that are contained in the report.
Absolutely. I mean, it's taken us 27 years, which is quite a shame, before we as a country have started the process of ratifying the Convention Against Apartheid. It has been signed off by Cabinet, so we believe it should now go to Parliament, and we're sure that Parliament will endorse that recommendation by Cabinet. But we should use that opportunity, even though it's taken us so long, as an occasion in which we can actually make ourselves, our position clear, and take up some of the recommendations. I mean, they make recommendations to various different UN member states, to the European Union, to European Union member states, to the United States government and State Department. So they've really covered quite thoroughly what everyone can do, including the Palestinian Authority, interestingly. And so we really feel that we could take this opportunity to call for an embargo on military and security equipment, sanctions, of course, as was done by the international community against apartheid South Africa. And they also call for an establishment of a UN global envoy for crimes of apartheid, and the launch of a UN Commission of Inquiry to investigate systematic discrimination and repression in the occupied territories, and an International Commission of Inquiry to investigate discrimination and repression based on group identity. And it says in the OPT and Israel. And I think that's what's also interesting about this report. They look at Israel, as they say, from the river to the sea, and identify different, how Israel practices different sorts of discrimination against the Palestinian people in various parts, in the way it governs differently within both Israel proper, as they call it, as well as in the occupied territories. So we really think it's an opportunity, our signing the convention, to make a strong statement and to actually take up sanctions against Israel.
Well, obviously, this is no ordinary report, and this report needs to be taken seriously. It's a 300-page study, basically, and this is what this report is all about. And also, at the same time, when one looks at the team behind the compilation of this report, the HSRC Commission, an international team of scholars and practitioners from international public law, and also looking at South Africa in itself, where we've had our own jurist, Professor John Dugard, who in his capacity as a special rapporteur to the United Nations Human Rights Council. So that's why I'm saying this is no ordinary report. This is a high-powered report. It's been thoroughly investigated. It's been thoroughly researched. And that is why this report needs to be taken extremely seriously, Roshan.
Absolutely. I mean, we've long been saying that Israel practices apartheid, and in fact, in 2009, the Human Science Research Council here in South Africa released a 300-page study showing that Israel is practicing colonialism and apartheid. Of course, Palestinian rights organizations have also been saying so, such as Badil and Al-Haq and Adala and Stop the Wall, as well as at least 2 UN bodies, the Economic and Social Council for Western Asia. The report was subsequently pulled because they didn't want to agree that it was apartheid. But more recently, the third committee, the committee that oversees the convention under which we held the World Conference Against Racism, if you remember, in Durban, I think it was 2001 or 2, they also have come out against Israel, saying that they, but under international law, can be considered to be practicing apartheid. And of course, earlier this year, the Israeli Human Rights Organization, which is also quite significant, but B'Tselem, came out and said the same thing. So I think, the narrative really is changing, and South Africa really has both a moral and a contemporary political obligation to take a lead within the UN system and as a country on its own. I mean, we have downgraded our embassy, but I think we're
Yes, I think for some reason or the other we lost Roshan, but we have got the message. We're going to go for a quick break. When we come back, we're still going to be joined by Professor Jeff Halper, political activist and former director of the Israeli Committee Against House Demolitions.
The Iftar Drive on Salam Media.
From the townships of South Africa, the refugee camps in